Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Monday, the 6th of May, 2024, and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin with the Indian elections. The first phase is over. The second and, of course, third phase are going to go now, starting from today. The second phase has started, in fact, from today. But a lot of question marks emanate as far as the Indian elections are concerned. Whether it be the way these elections are being conducted, whether it be the rhetoric that Narendra Modi government is perpetrating as far as the minorities, especially the Muslims of India are concerned, whether it be also the way the opposition has been suppressed in through different mechanisms by the Modi government as well. This and more will be part of our first segment. The machinations that the Narendra Modi-led government is doing in order to continue with its majority or its lead in the elections in 2024. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Palestine and Israel war. Today is day 213 of that conflict, that genocide, that ethnic cleansing that has been going on since the 7th of October last year. Now, Israel's military has ordered Palestinians to move out of eastern Rafah. It has warned it is about to use extreme force in southern Gaza. Is this the ground offensive that Israel has been talking about and that the Palestinians and the human rights organizations have been fearing since quite some time? This only time will tell. Also, will the US and other important organizations or countries or bloc of countries like the European Union be able to stop Israel before it butchers hundreds of thousands of more Palestinians? At the same time, there's also a lot of talk about the truce negotiations that have been going on, although they have been stalled as far as the last reports come in, but there is still a little glimmer of hope as to whether this truce agreement might come through, and we might hear of a couple of days of ceasefire after that ceasefire. This is also what we will be discussing in our second story. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Pakistan's economic outlook, the PSX, that is showing an upward rally as far as Pakistan is concerned. It ended 1.2% higher at the end of the day, 862.15 points higher, and ended at 72,764.24. A lot of people say this is because of the IMF delegation that is about to arrive later this month to Pakistan to discuss the new arrangement, the new facility to give Pakistan a medium-term loan. Then finally, we're going to talk about the CISS exams, ladies and gentlemen. They have recently been announced. The percentage of those who have cleared the CISS examination is 2.96%. in the year 2023. It has been decreasing since quite some time, but what comes out is the stories of those who have passed, who have cleared, who have topped the CS examination. In particular is the story of the couple whose pictures you are seeing in the parallel windows, Huzaifaaurangzeb and Dr. Hajra Niaz. Both have cleared their CS examinations post their marriage, and now both have been already allocated places in the police service of Pakistan and the inland revenue services respectively. Congratulations to the both of them. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the elections in India, the different questions surrounding it, and the manipulations being done by the Narendra Modi-led government in order to continue with his lead in these elections as well, but at what cost? We've been joined by AVM Ijaz Malik Saab. He's a senior analyst. He's right here with us in the studios, and we'll also be joined by another guest online, Abdul Basit. He's a research officer with the CISS. We'll begin with you, AVM Ijaz Malik Saab. Now, Narendra Modi, he was speaking to supporters in his home state of Gujarat. We all remember Gujarat, 2002, the riots. Well, he had a very oft-repeated electoral theme when he addressed his supporters there as well, that he has also addressed in different other places. He talked about how opposition parties are collaborating with Muslims to plot a takeover of India, and so many others that we will discuss later in this segment. Do you feel this is a rhetoric that is going in favor of the BJP, and to what cost?
If we go by election history of India, Pakistan bashing and then obviously the Muslim bashing has been a cornerstone of their successive election campaigns. And obviously it got augmented in the last two elections, which Mr. Modi had won, and unfortunately it has an audience, it has a populace which receives this particular rhetoric in a welcoming way, and that is how with every election campaign we see a rising aggression in the tone and manifestation by BJP and Mr. Modi. Obviously, you asked what caused? It caused the secular architecture of Indian Union. It caused the image of the largest democracy of the world, and it very clearly signifies that the India which was there in the times of Nehru's and later on during the Congress long seat in New Delhi, that has shattered, and now India is being managed and progressively with more aggression and forcefully the Hindutva of RSS that has taken over India.
Now this is the third phase of the 7 phases of the elections that will continue till next month, early next month in India. Now I'd like to refer to the term vote jihad. This is a term that has been repeated quite sometimes, a number of times by Narendra Modi. Why? Because the local leader of the opposition Samajwadi Party, Maria Alam, while she was addressing a gathering in the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, asked Muslims to carry out a jihad of votes, as she said, quote unquote. This is the only jihad that will carry out to remove Modi from power. She clarified that by jihad she meant struggle, because jihad is the Arabic name for struggle, and she was encouraging Muslim voter participation. Modi says that voter jihad is dangerous for the country's democracy, quote unquote. In a country of 200 million plus Muslims, in a tense election of 960 million plus voters, do you feel that the manipulation of Narendra Modi with terms such as vote jihad, and I'll go to other kinds of jihad that he will mention, that he has mentioned also, to do electioneering against Muslims and the opposition parties, isn't a dangerous precedent?
Well, Ms. Alam, once she related this with jihad, she very well knew that it is fraught with chances of being misinterpreted or represented, and that is what exactly happened. Per se, any person who is an Orientalist or has any bit of knowledge of Islamic teaching, the word jihad is nothing but a struggle. It does not necessarily means an armed struggle. But as was expected, Mr. Modi interpreted it to his advantage and tried to project as if the Muslims voters are being instigated to forcefully or aggressively pursue election campaign against the sitting government. So defining it to their own advantage, I think it will ultimately hurt the politics, whether it could be left or right. Ultimately, this is not a healthy sign.
Anyway. AVM sir, but on the one hand he says that the term vote jihad is dangerous for the country's democracy, but he himself uses terms such as love jihad and land jihad. These are part of the conspiracy theories that the Narendra Modi-led government himself have tried to propagate within India and within especially the Hindu majority in India. Love jihad meaning Muslim men marrying women from other faiths in order to convert them to Islam. Land jihad meaning Muslims are holding land to gain control of the terrain of India, a country that considers itself, quote unquote, considers itself a democracy and pluralistic country. Should it use such false notions?
No, these are potentially fault lines. Any sane politicians should not use such things, because ultimately the election campaign would run for a cycle, and even with a thin majority somebody will assume power. But the fault lines which are created in election campaign, they have very strategic effect, and a country which has ethnic diversity and lot of minorities in India, one should not handle such things with a lot of sensitivities and a lot of caution, I would say.
That is true. We've also been joined by Abdul Basit. He's a research officer with the CISS. Basit, thank you very much to have joined us. In a campaign speech last week, Narendra Modi equates the Muslim community with infiltrators, describes them as those who have more children, pandering to a Muslim majoritarian trope that Muslims produce more children with the aim of eventually outnumbering the Hindu majority in India. In reality, and we all know that Muslims constitute less than 15% of the national population, and their fertility rate is of course going down as well. These comments have set off a political row, inviting sharp criticism from the opposition and sections of the civil society as well. Nearly 20,000 citizens have written to the Election Commission of India to act against the accusations of hate speech by Modi. Do you feel such terms used by Narendra Modi for Muslims are justified in any manner? B, will the Election Commission react to it in a positive manner, or do you feel it is complicit with the Narendra Modi-led government?
Thank you, Omar, for inviting to such a crucial debate. I would simply say no to your first question, whether Narendra Modi's comments are justified or not. I would simply say no. And answering to your second question, whether Election Commission will act or not, I think with the advent of Narendra Modi-led BJP government, which is enforced by or supported by RSS, the Hindutva-led, the torchbearer of Hindutva ideology, I don't think so the Election Commission will react, because the government and all the institutions of the Indian government have been saffronized since the advent of Narendra Modi government, and even military, even Supreme Court, or either you can count any of the institution of the Indian government. They all have been saffronized by the current government. I would say something regarding these elections. You were asking something about vote jihad and the current election scenarios. I would like to add something, that BJP administration under Modi's leadership has effectively indoctrinated hate against Muslims within the mind of Hindu masses, resulting a widespread acceptance of anti-Muslim rhetoric. Public opinion, as evident by surveys such as Pew Research Center's study conducted between late 2019 and early 2020, reflects Modi's perspective on Indian identity politics. A significant majority of Hindus, 64%, emphasize the importance of being Hindu to being truly Indian. Additionally, 59% regarding speaking Hindi as fundamental to defining Indianness, while 84% consider religion to be very important in their lives, with 59% praying daily. These findings underscore the demand-driven nature of BJP's dominance, highlighting the resonance of Modi's anti-Muslim narrative among the Hindu electorate. You have also seen the conviction of the case of Article 370. We were expecting something better from the Indian Supreme Court, but under the garb of Bharatiya Janata Party led by Narendra Modi, who is basically acting as a Hindu king, he is not administrating India. He is just ruling the India as a Hindu king. So he has turned every institution and has tried to infiltrate or influx his ideas based on nationalism and Hindu national identity. So every institution of India has been saffronized by Narendra Modi, and I don't expect anything better from the Indian Election Commission, and that's all.
Or even the courts, All right. AVM Saab, Basit talks about the authoritarian rule of Narendra Modi. And of course, in the past government as well. I'd like to revert to some of the recent comments and machinations or mechanisms that the BJP has employed, which further solidify the fact that this is in fact an authoritarian rule that is meant to completely nullify all other forms of parties, whether it be Congress or any other party. On the 23rd of April, Narendra Modi claimed and through a conspiracy on the Congress, saying that the country's principal opposition party and Muslims were wanting to steal the Hindu wealth. He said, and I quote, "I present the truth before the nation that Congress has hatched a deep conspiracy to snatch our property and distribute it among their special favorites." Then, on the 30th of April, the BJP publishes an animated campaign video on Instagram that shows stereotypical portrayals of violent and greedy Muslim male raiders attacking medieval India and plundering the wealth of India before Modi arrives to rescue the nation. This comment, video, and of course the terms that he has used, are they being done deliberately during the elections, also before the election? I'm sure it will also be after the elections, to create a further divide between religions?
Yes, and before I develop on this, I would like to endorse what Mr. Basit had said. Through a very conscious, apparently benign methodology, in the past two governments, BJP has done certain administrative restructuring which have curtailed the constitutional freedom of institutions like election commission, and for that matter have had an influence over Supreme Court of India, which is evident from certain steps and decisions which have been taken in the past decade or so. Now coming back to this animated video and the purpose behind it, probably they want to project, because there is a sentiment, there is a growing sentiment about invaders which were mostly Muslims. Obviously the last 200 years were by the British Raj, but obviously no government or no political party would ever talk about that. People who have actually taken away the wealth from India. The wealth was created, the opportunities for generation of wealth was created in about 700 years rule of Muslims, and they were taken by the Britishers, if we go by the statistics, and there are some sane voices in India who have written books on this particular subject. I'm sure you are aware of that, but at this stage they are just trying to malign the minds of people and trying to create some disadvantage for Congress, because apparently the Muslim voters, they are aligning with Congress. So that could be the reason.
All right. Basit, religious polarization, we've talked about it a little bit before the show as well, and with my other guest as well. Do you feel this religious polarization will lead to democracy being seriously at stake during the elections and post the elections as well, with all the hateful remarks, with all the remarks that are targeted towards the Muslim community in India? Do you feel that the current leadership has any regard whatsoever as far as the Muslims are concerned, because they might be a minority, but they are 200 million plus?
Okay. Concerning this question, I would like to add something that although India is world's largest democracy in terms of population and in terms of its expenses. But considering the empirical evidence happening on the ground, it is evident that India as a democracy is on decay. The Nehruvian principles and the democratic manners are, you can say, run off by Indian BJP under Modi. In the ongoing Indian elections, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bharatiya Janata Party have strategically positioned themselves as champions of Hindu interests, framing the narrative around protecting Hindu interests from perceived threats posed by Muslims. This rhetoric, deeply entrenched within the political discourse, has sparked outrage and condemnation from various quarters. But I would like to add that BJP won 2014 elections on you can say Gauraksha. 2019 they introduced Citizens Amendment Act, and in the current elections, immediately before the elections, they have inaugurated the Ram Mandir. All three major their electoral reforms were based as anti-Muslim, either Citizens Amendment Act, either Gauraksha, or either the construction of Ram Mandir. So the narrative or the policies pursued by Bharatiya Janata Party are totally anti-Muslim, and I don't think so that there would be there would be seen a betterment in future, because the ideological driving force behind BJP and Narendra Modi is the expansionism of Hindu empire. So Narendra Modi, acting as a king, I don't think so he would step back. He would further this Hindu expansionist ideology. And
this Akhand Bharat, this greater Bharat that he has time and again talked about. Thank you very much, Abdul Basit, research officer from CISS, to have joined us, to have discussed the Indian attitude, with particular reference, of course, to the BJP and Narendra Modi mechanisms, machinations during these elections, pre-elections, and of course, we'll see what will happen post-elections. Now, Ijaz, Malik Saab, Modi is a bigger cult than a lot of people imagine. Reminds us a lot of another personality of the Second World War that I don't want to name, because he caused a genocide of hundreds and thousands of people. Do you feel that the Hindutva movement is subsumed by this individual personality that is known as Narendra Modi? Do you feel that this is, in 2024, the elections in India are actually elections, or are they an individual glorification drive? Isn't this a very dangerous trend and precedent?
Hindutva is a phenomena which is currently in these times that we are passing through. It is being symbolized at the apex, by Mr. Narendra Modi. So, whether by design or default, it gives that leverage, and glorification comes to him anyway, because he personifies and he symbolizes that greater Hindu, Hindutva, Akhand Bharat, Mahabharat, all these phenomena. So I think it has an element, an organic element of personal glorification.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the first story, and that was regarding the Indian elections and the way the BJP and Narendra Modi are doing the needful in order to appease the majority of Hindus and, of course, disregard completely and sideline the minorities, especially the Muslims, by disregarding, by disrespecting them by every means possible. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns day 213 of the Israel-Palestine war, the conflict, the genocide, the ethnic cleansing, the war against humanity, the war crimes that have been going on, and that doesn't show any signs of abating, although some ray of or glitter of hope remain in the form of a truce agreement that might happen between the Israeli and Palestinian side, resulting in a ceasefire for a couple of days. But for the moment, this all seems just in the air. But at the same time, what seems very realistic is the offensive on Rafah, with Israel calling all Palestinians to vacate the eastern part of Rafah. What's going to happen in the next coming days or hours? We continue our discussion with AVM Ijaz Malik Saab, who is a senior analyst. AVM Saab, Israel's military has ordered Palestinians to move out of eastern Rafah, warns that it is about to use extreme force in southern Gaza. Intense Israeli bombing continue in Rafah. Yesterday, 22 people were killed, including a majority of children. Is all of this an apparent preparation of the ground offensive on Rafah that Israel has been tom-tomming since quite some time, and what the EU and the US have been telling Israel not to go forward with?
I think Mr. Netanyahu would go with his strategic plan as conceived, and Rafah offensive would be undertaken. Okay. Because they haven't succumbed to any pressure, if there was any pressure. Because the only country which can exert pressure has a very paradoxical approach towards this issue, that is United States, and other EU or other blocs, or even for that matter the institutions like UN Security Council, they are not in a position to stop Israel to do whatever they want.
But AVM Ijaz Malik, you talked about the United States of America. Now the Palestinian presidency, through its spokesperson, says that the US will be responsible for the genocidal results of the Rafah operation, and has called on Washington to take action to prevent it. At the same time, the Chief of Pentagon, the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, who's also heading Pentagon, has told his American counterpart, Yoav Gallant, that Israel was left with no choice but to launch its offensive on Rafah. Will, in your point of view, the US be able to stop somehow the Rafah assault from happening, or whatever it says, the statements are mere statements and will never translate into actual action?
I don't think so. It will materialize or translate into any credible deterrence which could stop or halt the Israeli designs of their campaign, and they will go. There could be some delays, but they would ultimately do the offensive.
All right. Truce talks in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, have been happening since some time. They seem to be stalled for the moment. The Palestinian side wants an end to the war. Israel said it's willing only to pause the fighting, not to end the war, to secure the release of captives. This is also what Yoav Gallant said, told Defense Secretary of the US, Lloyd Austin. Palestine also blames Israel for the failure to reach a deal so far. The Palestinian representative has left Cairo on Sunday for further consultation, say they'll be back on Tuesday. CIA Director William Burns is also on his way to Doha for an emergency meeting with the Qatari Prime Minister to see if there's any way to prevent the collapse of these talks. Is there still a chance for this deal to fall through?
There is, yes, chances do exist. But not very optimistic. I'm not very optimistic about that, because ultimately it will shape up, whether post Rafah offensive or at some stage. Ultimately, there will be a settlement after Israel has achieved their strategic objectives. ultimately they will come on negotiating.
But you know, when you talk of strategic objectives, AVM Sahab, I don't even understand what these strategic objectives are, and when will those strategic objectives be achieved? When A, all the Palestinians will be killed, B, all the Palestinian territory will be occupied by Israel, and the Palestinians whose territory has been occupied will be told to leave for other countries. When will it actually end?
They haven't given any, I would say, stated objectives for this campaign, but obviously it means to destroy and neutralize all present threats and all potential threats in this region against Israel. So they would do anything. I mean, they have already done. What else could they do? Around 35,000 people have been martyred, and the infrastructure in terms of hospitals, in terms of schools, I think even if it stops today, it will take decades to rebuild, to reconstruct.
3 to 4 decades.
And who will support that? I mean, in recent conflicts, wherever we have seen in any theater, in Middle East particularly, the recovery rehab process has not been fruitful. There has been promises, but ultimately after all the objectives were achieved, people were left at their own, and one couldn't progress or develop. Which country has developed through rehab or reconstruction which was promised to them? So it is very unfortunate, but the problem is that the parties or the stakeholders or the key players, they are not moved by this disaster, unfortunately, which includes unfortunately few Muslim countries also, because if anybody could exert any pressure, they haven't shown any semblance of that effort even.
All right, AVM Sahab, Joseph Borrell, who is a top diplomat as far as European Union is concerned, is pushing for these truce talks to come to their fruition as well. He talks about implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 2728 fully and immediately. Do you feel the EU has enough clout to exert the necessary pressure for this truce to happen?
Not really. EU doesn't have that clout. I mean, practically, it's all geo-economics and lobbies in America. I would not blame America as a nation, but the strong lobbies in America, which are per se Jewish or Zionist lobbies, they are calling the shots as far as the world geo-economics are concerned.
All right. The Israeli cabinet voted unanimously to close the Al-Jazeera offices as far as Palestine is concerned. They can no longer operate from Palestine. They can no longer have a bureau in Palestine. All their offices has been ransacked and completely closed. It has resulted in a lot of condemnation from different countries, from different international journalistic bodies as well. Do you feel this decision to shut down Al Jazeera is an attack on free speech and freedom of the press? I know it is, but to which extent? And do you feel this is just the beginning? Will they also censor all such content that is in fact exacting the truth of what they are perpetrating in Palestine?
I think this is the beginning of that blackout which they intend doing, because already it was Al Jazeera was the only channel which was giving a wide coverage and reliable coverage as far as all parties to the conflict were concerned, because other have their own vested interests, and whether they propagate or they take pride in being free and fair press, but they are controlled. They are controlled by certain lobbies. So I think once this voice is silenced, it will be the beginning of a blackout or a manipulated media management about the reporting and on this conflict.
AVM Sahab, students in the US are facing detention, suspension, other punishments to have participated in various pro-active, pro-Palestine demonstrations. The Associated Press talks about more than 2,200 people who've been arrested as a result of these 56 incidents of arrest in 43 different US colleges or universities since the 18th of April. This movement, what do you feel is it going to lead to as far as A, the public perception of what Israel is doing, B, the political perception of what Israel is doing? Will it have any implication on the upcoming elections?
Definitely it would create ripples. It has already started to create ripples in the public opinions, and how this conflict is being managed by Biden administration, and the mere fact that there are some counter narratives also which are coming up. For example, that universities and educational institutes, they are for education, and by such demonstration or allowing such demonstration or expression of freedom on campus, we are trying to create a fear or an environment which is not healthy as far as the safety and security of certain students are concerned. So by taking advantage of those freedoms, they are trying to suppress or raise their concern about freedom of expression.
But don't you feel they're also afraid of rehab, how should I say, or a repeat of what happened in 1968, when in the same university which started these protests, in 1968 also, there were protests that started at Columbia, where they also started on earlier last month, and they resulted in a whole political change in the US and the retrieval of troops from Vietnam.
Yes, but the difference between two is that the incidences which led to this outburst in 1968, it had a long struggle behind that, and ultimately the withdrawal from Vietnam was decided. But this election is around the corner, just in November. What impact this would have on the upcoming election may not be immediately, but once these students who are potentially going to be the voters also, once they come into the electoral process of America, that's going to make some difference, I believe.
All right. So you feel there is a movement which is changing the narrative amongst those who are going to be not in 2024, but maybe in the next elections,
yes,
be part of this whole electoral mechanism, and
yes,
it is then we might be seeing a change.
Yes.
All right. AVM Sahab, Turkey announced last Friday it had halted trade ties with Israel until a permanent truce and humanitarian aid access was secured in Gaza. Will other countries follow suit? Will that have an impact on Israel, or will this serve as a pressure tactic on Israel?
We have to see which countries have these economic ties with Israel. The exports to and imports from Israel affect which countries? Most of the countries which have their economic interests, they are siding with openly. They are siding with Israel, so they would not, be motivated or moved by this Turkish initiative. Yes, it should have some kind of I would say it should promote some sense into the Muslim bloc who are having economic ties with Israel, and they should review their trade with Israel. That could give a snowball effect to what Turkish ban is trying to create on ground.
Now let's talk of the International Criminal Court as well. The ICC Prosecutor's Office warns that action will be taken against those who are threatening to retaliate or attempting to impede or intimidate its officials. This comes in the wake of rumors that started that the ICC might take actions in the form of arrests of certain Israeli leaders. The ICC prosecutor's office also said that these threats constitute an offence against the administration of justice under Article 70 of the Rome Statute, and this is as a reaction to the threats that were given by the Israeli side. How do you view these statements by the ICC? Will there actually be any arrests of Israeli leaders in the coming days or arrest warrants issued? In that case, what could be the repercussion, judicial or otherwise?
In the past conflicts, post Cold War era, we haven't seen any arrest during the conflict. If there are any examples, they are post conflict, and they also, in my personal opinion, they also emerged out of certain narratives and certain siding by the then sole superpower, United States. In this particular case, I think it would be too optimistic to hope that there would be any arrest or any prosecution.
All right. The UNRWA, we all know this is the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, has released figures showing the extensive toll that the Israel's war on Gaza has had on Palestinian women. Since October 7, it says more than 10,000 women have been killed in the besieged territory, 19,000 have been wounded. Most are mothers. Average of 37 children are losing their mothers every single day. Then pregnant women are not getting the necessary nutrition. We have heard devastating stories of how children are born who are almost weightless or are weighing 1 or 2 kgs. 155,000 women are have severe limited access to water and sanitation. This is what the agency has said. Doesn't that raise the eyebrows of the so-called humanitarian champions of the world?
If we go by history, it is not last 213 days. It is for last 16 years that Gaza is under some kind of blockade.
But not the kind that we are seeing since 7th of October.
Not the kind. So, slowly and gradually, Israel has been able to sensitize lobbies that they do not raise even an eyebrow on what's going on. You see, it's the direct victims, the direct deaths toll is around 35,000. But through starvation, through depriving hampering the food security, there are no hospital supplies.
Then disease, the hygiene related issues.
Exactly, water and sanitation issues. So ultimately, it's the impact is manifold. The numbers that word sees or project, it is I would say it is very insignificant. We have to see the impact of this. I mean, the mothers who have malnutrition, the newly born who have malnutrition, the non-availability of medicines, the hospital facilities, it would contribute towards, for coming generation. It is just like on a smaller scale, like we had the impact of Hiroshima, that there was some direct kills, and then for generations we were seeing the impact of what happened there.
This is what we are going to see here as well. Now, the Palestinian Prisoner Society issues also a reminder that 53 Palestinian journalists are currently in jail and of course have been incarcerated by Israel. Then in 2023, more than 3/4 of the 99 journalists and media workers who were killed worldwide died in Israel's war on Gaza. The toll has only increased in 2024, with the latest tally saying that an average of 5 journalists are killed in Gaza every single week. Will anybody condemn these arrests or these killings?
It hasn't really come up even in the media, and the media and media freedom champions all over the world, they haven't flagged this issue. Whereas if any such thing happens in a country like Pakistan, for example, or any other Muslim country, the entire world would raise concern, and it will become the lead story, even if there is a death of one civilian who is from the media or journalist. But in this particular case, this angle has never been never come in the limelight.
Final question, AVM Saab. The United Nations Mine Action Service estimates that 37 million tons of debris has littered the streets of Gaza, which will take more than a decade to clear up. This includes up to 10,000 unexploded ammunition, according to the Humanity and Inclusion's Middle East Director. It will also take up to 14 years to clear Gaza rubble, as per another estimate as well. Does the world understand the after effects of this war, whether it be in the reconstruction form, whether if somebody gives aid, it will take 3 to 4 decades to reconstruct what has been destroyed, and then the debris that has lined, including unexploded ammunition?
It may take even more than what has been reported, because these are all estimations, and we don't see, because the world at large would not be able to support the rehab effort in this region, and so all these timelines, they are, I think, arbitrary, and they will continue to pose a threat to the survivors of this conflict.
That is true. AVM Saab, thank you very much to have stayed on during the show, and you discussed 2 very important topics today. Just stay on for a couple of minutes more while we end the show. Thank you so much to have come and to have given us your eminent point of view. Let's end this show with 2 interesting stories and positive stories after all that negativity. The first is the KSE 100 index that has gained over 1% as the bullish trend continues as far as Pakistan Stock Exchange is concerned. The KSE witnessed a volatile session. Bulls managed to gain ground, and at close today the KSE 100 index settled at 72,764.24. It was up 862.15 points, or around 1.2%. The Pakistani rupee has also remained largely stable, depreciating 0.01% against the US dollar in the interbank market today. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the CISS. A lot of parents want their children to pass the CISS and be successful. But what we've seen in the last couple of years is that the percentage of these successful candidates has decreased considerably. The passing ratio for the year 2023 has stood at 2.96%, as stated by the Federal Public Services Commission that announced the results just a couple of days back. The first position, of course, was secured by Adil Rayaz, second by Sheher Bano, while Okasha Abrar came third. But what caught our eye is the story of the couple whose pictures you are seeing in the parallel windows. Huzaifaaurangzeb, who is a PSP officer and now of course has passed his CISS, and his wife Dr. Hajra Niaz. Both met in a when they were doing their MBBS together. Huzaifa sent a proposal, as his wife said, when she was in second year. She told him, I have my career goals. He said, we will achieve these career goals together. Since then, she says, and she posted, they've gotten the Prime Minister Award, the KPK Innovation Award, 19 SA Awards, BBC Mention, Dean's Honour, Youth Interior Ministry Award, and CSS in first attempt by both husband and wife. Huzaifaaurangzeb is now allocated in the Police Service of Pakistan, and Dr. Hajra Niaz is now part of the Inland Revenue Services. Congratulations to the both of you, and I'll only say this, wherever there is a will, there is always a way. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end for today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.